Thank you all for sticking around this afternoon. We had some great conversations, and we're hoping to have another great one. It is my pleasure, an honor, a privilege, really, to have this conversation about the future with two gentlemen who know probably more about it than most. The fellow all the way to my right, to your left, does not need any introduction, Elon Musk. You all know from Tesla and SpaceX, of course, from Solar City. Sam Altman, I would say you don't need too much introduction either, but I'm going to give it to you just in case you don't. He runs Y Combinator. Y Combinator has investments in over 1,000 companies at this point. They're investing in about 250 companies every single year. Those companies collectively are worth about $65 billion in total. That's with a B. And to give you just a sort of a sense of the kind of names we're talking about Airbnb, Dropbox, Stripe, Zenefits, Instacart, et cetera. So both folks with an amazing pedigree and an amazing sense of what's going on. Here's where I want to start the conversation with both of you, and I think we're going to probably go to outer space very quickly. But we're going to try to keep it on Earth, at least for the moment. When you think about innovation, and you think about where we are going to be 10, 15, 20 years, and what to invest in and what to make, I'm going to make it hard for you, Elon. If you took Tesla out of it, took Solar City out of it, took SpaceX out of it, and you said, I could go start a new company tomorrow, it would be what? It would be in what area? Where would you start thinking about?
Well, I think there's some there's a fairly obvious opportunity in electric aircraft, because all transport will electrify over time, with the exception of rockets, ironically. Yeah. There's two areas which, they're fraught with issues, but it's one of those things where if you don't do something, maybe not doing something is worse, like on the AI front or on genetics, So those are the two things I think, besides sustainable transport, the internet, and making life multiplanetary, rewriting genetics and AI, the latter two are the ones that can most change destiny of humanity. But they're really dodgy. So maybe I'd try to do something in one of those two areas, but they're fraught with difficulty.
Elizabeth Holmes was here earlier, spoke during the lunch hour. Do you think about genetics and longevity and trying to sort of avoid, your friend Larry Page is investing in a business hoping to end death?
I don't, I'm not actually a huge proponent of longevity. I do think that having a good life for longer is better. Like you'd want to address the things that happen to you when you're older, like dementia and so forth. Those are pretty important. But I'm not sure it's sort of actually want to do that. I want to get into the genetics thing, but it is something that's going to fundamentally change humanity and along with AI. So
you don't want to live forever so that you can actually get to Mars?
I definitely don't want to live forever.
How many years do you want to live?
I don't know, 100 good ones.
100 good ones or 100 more good ones? You're 44?
100 good ones in total I think is probably fine. Maybe a bit longer.
Sam, where would you put your money? You're the investor here.
Well, we try to invest in a very broad range of technology. So we funded an electric airplane, or funding an electric airplane company. We've done AI companies. We've done.
How realistic is the electric airplane, by the way?
I think it should work. I think it makes sense.
Yeah,
absolutely. The math should work. I think I no huge surprise, but I'll agree with Elon on those two areas. I think if you could pick two things that I'm not already working really hard on, AI, having AI go in the positive direction, which I really think it can, and I think thinking about sort of genetic technology.
Genetic technology. I made it unfair for you because I said we had to take Solar City out and we had to take the cars out, so we didn't get to really talk about energy. But I imagine, how big a thing do you think energy all in, and when you think about both your investments and what you're doing, is something that is one of the things that you need to tackle?
Well, I think sustainable energy is the most important problem that we face this century. That's like a known difficult thing that we have to solve. Like if we continue to rely on burning hydrocarbons, the future is going to be quite bad, and the vast majority of the scientific establishment believes that. And the evidence, I think, is, well, I mean, for anyone with a scientific background is unequivocal. So we've got to solve sustainable energy. I'm a big fan of solar because we've got this big fusion ball in the sky called the sun, and it shows up every day. So if we can use solar energy plus batteries, we can actually have a complete solution for sustainable energy generation, and then we need to use it in a sustainable way, which is where you need the electric transport.
The thing I would add, I think getting the cost of sustainable energy down super low is probably, short of friendly AI, like the most important thing we can do for sort of quality of life of the poorest half of the world. I think that every time I look into this, it's really amazing how much the cost of energy and the quality of life correlate.
What about nuclear energy? You have some investments in nuclear energy.
Yeah, I mean, what I've always said is I think the end state of the world is a combination of nuclear and solar, probably 80-20 one way or the other, sort of terrestrial-based nuclear. I think fusion is likely to work at some point in the next couple of decades, and that's a really big deal. I think that it's good to have a backup option. It's good to have two sources, but it's all sort of fusion when you think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm big. I mean, I think fusion. I think it's definitely possible to make fusion work, but I think and I used to be a big fan of like having of that as the long-term energy source, but I'm inclined to think like indirect fusion from the sun essentially is going to be the primary source, and then to some degree there will be fusion reactors for maybe
cargo ships or whatever.
Yeah, if you're really far north or really far south or something.
What about the risks of nuclear energy?
Of fusion?
Of fusion? Yeah, I assume there's some risk. There's no risk?
Not really.
Zero? I'm an idiot? I don't...
No. No, I mean, with fusion, the difficulty is keeping it going. With fission, you have some meltdown risk, although there's new technology on the fission front that makes the meltdown risk extremely low. But with fusion, the great difficulty is keeping the fire from going out. It's quite hard to sustain a fusion reaction unless you have something very big like the sun, and where you have the sun has gravitational confinement of the fusion reaction. So since you can't do gravitational confinement on Earth, you have to do some sort of electromagnetic confinement in one form or another, or a kinetic confinement by slamming things into each other. So it's quite tricky to prevent a fusion explosion from not immediately extinguishing.
Got it.
So fusion is like...
I mean, probably what you do is just repeat it every second or whatever.
So I mean, just to sort of, fusion is like when you take, say, two hydrogen atoms or two hydrogen isotopes technically, and slam them together and form helium. That's fusion. Right. And then fission is like when you've got like a heavy atom that is decaying at a relatively like a noticeable rate, like uranium or plutonium, and decays into smaller atoms. Then that's fission.
Okay, I didn't do so well in science, so we're going to try to move along. But you recently said that you wanted to nuke Mars. I didn't really understand
using sort of
that,
colloquial
so
terms there.
Then you guys in the back were doing some science talk about how nuking Mars would work.
Yeah. So nuking Mars, I sort of was a little flippant about that.
I think it's a really decent idea.
Thank you. What I was really getting at, but it's hard to, convey that in like 30 seconds, on the late show with Stephen Colbert, was that the sun is a nuclear explosion, a fusion explosion. That's what the sun is. It's an ongoing fusion explosion. So if you wanted to add energy to Mars, like warm up Mars, really the source of almost all energy in the universe is fusion. Even fission is, originally there was fusion, and then that then later resulted in fission. But what I was really talking about is creating two little suns, two pulsing suns above the north and south pole of Mars that would warm the poles up enough so that the frozen CO2 would gasify and densify the atmosphere. Some of the water would also heat up, and you'd have sort of more water vapor and CO2 in the Martian atmosphere, which in that case is good because the CO2 ends up warming Mars up. And so you get a positive sort of reaction, like it's a positive cycle of warming on Mars. Like you want to warm Mars up, you don't want to warm Earth up, so.
Why would you ever want to live on Mars?
It looks like a great adventure to me.
Beyond the adventure, do you actually, both of you're investing in stuff that hopefully one day will go to Mars.
Nothing for Mars, but.
Excuse me?
Nothing for Mars, but I hope Elon goes. I think that would be cool.
But is that just for one person? What's going to happen? No, really, I want to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Mars thing is really, like, if you say what is going to be really important to the preservation of civilization or life as we know it, more than just, humanity, because, of course, we would bring life as we know it to Mars. And there's no life that we can detect on the surface of Mars. There may be some subterranean bacterial life, but it's on the surface, there isn't anything. So this would be the extension of life to another planet, or life as we know it to another planet. And I think would make a huge difference to the probable lifespan of human civilization and life as we know it. So it's sort of like an insurance policy, a life insurance policy for life collectively, and so it's probable. Because
you think global warming. What do you think is going to happen here? That's going to.
I do want to be clear. This is a. I mean, I think it's important that we become a multi-planet species, not a single planet species, but on another planet. So this is if we. It's like what kind of future do you want to have? Do you want to have a future where we are forever confined to one planet, or one where we are out there exploring the stars and on many planets? And I think the latter one is far more exciting and inspiring, because the former is basically waiting around until some extinction event. So, because eventually there will be one. It might be quite far in the future, but it also might not be far in the future. So there's really two main reasons, I think, to make life multiplanetary and to establish a self-sustaining civilization on Mars. One is the defensive reason to ensure that the light of consciousness as we know it is not extinguished or lasts much longer. And the second is that it would be an amazing adventure that we could all enjoy vicariously, if not personally.
I think it's really important to establish multiplanetary life. I agree with that. I think my concern is that I think the AI question is likely to become pressing and important to deal with before we can establish a full colony on Mars.
That's true.
And I think even if not, then the AI can go to Mars on a laser beam.
The AI goes
easier.
to.
It's very hard.
What does that even mean?
It's like just beams itself there.
Yeah, I mean it's very hard
like
to send a human through space.
But the AI is going to go.
Like 20 minutes, on a laser beam. It's easy.
Do you guys believe in life forms outside of Earth? Do you think there are?
I mean, I think there's quite a high chance of microbial life. There's a much then as you get more advanced in life, that there's less and less likelihood of sophisticated life.
But do you think there's do you think there are aliens out there
that we can talk to? You mean, as opposed to like bacteria?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a great Onion article recently about like NASA should only hold a press conference if they find aliens that we can talk to. But I think so. I mean, it's an interesting confluence of events. Like, it's not just that there has to be life, intelligent life that evolves somewhere, but that life has to last for a long time for us to exist at the same time as that. So what it suggests is there's this great questions called the Fermi paradox. Like, where are the aliens? Like, if there are so many planets out there, and the universe is almost 14 billion years old, why aren't the aliens everywhere? This is one of the most perplexing questions, because you could basically bicycle to Alpha Centauri in a few 100,000 years, like, meaning that's at bicycle speed. So it's sort of like, in 100 million years, like, even at a very slow speed, you could completely blanket the galaxy. So why not? Where are they?
It's very hard for me to get
Maybe
my head
they're
around
right
all this. Well, we were talking in the back, and we've had this conversation before. You please weigh in on this. And I think it's a thought experiment that you have suggested, that we are all collectively right now living in a simulation. What does that mean?
Yeah, it's a probabilistic thing. So really, if you look at say the advancement of video games from say 40 years ago, when we started out with Pong, and you just had like rectangles batting a rectangle to each other, and now we've got photorealistic 3D simulations with millions of people playing simultaneously, or 3D games with millions of people playing simultaneously, that are just getting better. Now we've got virtual reality headsets, so you can just put it on and it feels like you're right there. You'll have haptic feedback, meaning force feedback sticks, so you can actually pick up something and feel like you're picking up something, like have haptic gloves. And if you extrapolate that advancement at any rate at all, like if you say, okay, let's say it slows down by a factor of 100 starting right now. Okay, so then I mean, the video games will be indistinguishable from reality in, let's say, 200 years instead of 20 years or something like that.
But you don't think that we're in a game right now?
Okay, well, but this is
like that we are all. Somebody has a joystick somewhere else in some other. You know where I'm going with this.
It certainly doesn't feel like that. I mean, I don't think I'm being played by somebody in a video game. But then people in video games don't generally think that.
I certainly think if you talk to people who use the latest virtual reality equipment in sort of a big space where they sort of map like benches in the space to benches in the game and the environment, they have this experience when they do that for the first time, and then they take it off, and then they just freeze for 10 seconds, and then you talk to them, and it's clear that like their belief that this is actual reality has been shaken, because they were so convinced in virtual reality that was real. And so if I can take this off, like, why aren't there other layers? I also think it ties interestingly back to the Fermi paradox.
Yeah, exactly.
If it is a simulation, sort of that would be a pretty good answer for why there are no aliens.
How far are we away from sort of virtual reality being a thing that all of us sort of live in to some degree? We would go to this conference.
Real close.
We would go to this conference from our VR sets.
I mean, I do think there's still something to actually really being there in person that we probably won't lose for a long time, hopefully never. But I mean, with what Oculus and Valve are coming out with, and I believe some of that, like the first VR headsets are due out
early next year.
Yeah, like in the next several months. And the demos that I've seen, and I think Sam's probably seen too, are incredibly compelling. And there is that strange feeling, because you put the headset on in like a very nondescript, bland room, and you put the headset on and suddenly you're in anywhere. Like you could be...
Yeah, I got this demo where they would like blow air on you when you like got near a cliff edge, and when you walk near a fire, they would turn on the heater. And you don't see any of this because you're just wearing it, and then it's really quite compelling.
I want to talk about something else that's compelling, which is Tesla.
It's really nice.
Talk about the X.
It's an SUV.
It's an SUV, but here's what I was going to say: $132,000. How many people are really going to buy this thing?
Yeah. So the first cars that are produced are the sort of fully optioned version. So it's not like a base price of $132,000. It's And we'll have a version that's still expensive, on the expensive side, but before any incentives would be about $75K next year. With incentives and whatnot, it's maybe 65. So it's still expensive, but it's not as crazy as 132.
Right.
And then in a couple of years, we should have the Model 3, and that'll be starting price of $35,000. So it's a smaller car, but it's a lot more affordable.
Okay, so for the Tesla sort of real aficionados who follow you on Twitter, you need to answer one thing, which is last week somebody tweeted at you, I think about the X, and then you put out a tweet that mentioned the Y and the 3, and then you deleted the tweet.
Yes, this has no
And everybody
significance.
wants to know why you deleted the tweet and what the tweet actually said.
I think it just said something like there'll be the Model 3 and the Model Y, and that one of them will have like a falcon wing door, which is like pretty obviously the Model Y. But I deleted that and like, I don't know, a dozen other tweets because I just sort of had like kind of a rambling Twitter history. But it had no significance. The delete has no significance. Like I don't think deleting a tweet like makes it go away from the internet or something.
So why delete the tweet?
I just didn't like the way my Twitter history looked. It was like too rambling.
You've invested in Twitter, in Tesla.
Yeah.
You own a Tesla.
Yeah.
Make the case for those who are out there. Make it harder because he has to do it now. Why? What is this going to become in your mind?
You sure you don't want him to answer?
Yeah, we know what he's going to say.
Look, I mean, I think as most people who own one think it's the best car, like out there. I had a Roadster before, a Tesla Roadster, which was not the best car. But the Model S, it really is. Like, it's the best car on the market. And I think that people think of this like existing car companies, but actually, this is like a software company with a car attached to it. And it's, you just like, you sort of point and click. You like point the wheel somewhere, you push the thing down, and it just kind of gets there. It doesn't make noise. It's very reliable. The software actually works. It's the only car with good software. So I think people really like it. Now, yeah, it's like really expensive still, but I think, I'm confident that a mass market Tesla will do very well. And I also think the other electric cars I've driven feel like many years behind.
Right. You talked about this being a software company. Do you think of yourself as a software company?
I think we're a software and a hardware company, but the software component does become increasingly important. So you got to get both right, because it's a holistic product experience. But its software is increasingly an increasing proportion of the problem, particularly as you get to autonomy,
So there is a view. I don't know if it's a conspiracy theory that you are building autonomous functionality and other driverless-like functionality into the car without advertising that it's in there, and that one day you're going to flip a switch and the car is going to start just driving.
No, not quite like that. But we are going to upload new software soon, and this is not actually a secret or anything. We have version 7 of our software which turns on highway autopilot, so the car will be able to steer by itself on highways or any kind of road that doesn't have really steep, sharp curves on it, and then also it'll steer quite well in traffic. So those are the two scenarios where it's I think going to be quite good at steering, and that's in public beta right now. So we have 600 or 700 Tesla drivers, owners that are testing the auto steer software.
Go ahead.
I think full self-driving cars, not Tesla specifically, but just in general, are likely to get here much more quickly than people realize.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
If you ask most people, they'd still say that's 10 to 20 years away. And I actually think we'll have sort of like full point-to-point autonomous driving in a few years. It won't be uncommon.
A few years, like 2 or 3 years?
3 or 4 maybe.
Where you
probably
on
know
that?
better.
I agree. I think that's something on the 2 to 3 year time frame is likely for it to be technologically. I mean, you'll be able to demonstrate it, but you won't be able to go to fully autonomous until you get regulatory
Yeah, that
approval.
will take longer.
So there's a time difference between when it is technologically possible, in a general sense, so that not just like in a very tightly mapped situation like, say, Mountain View or Palo Alto,
Right.
but in a general sense of like, can it do point to point virtually anywhere?
Right.
I think that's only 2 to 3 years away. But then approval from regulators of having it be autonomous is anywhere from, I don't know, 1 to 5 years after that, depending upon the location, because the regulators have to be convinced that it is substantial. I think they'll want to see that it's significantly more, significantly safer than cars that are driven by people.
I want to open it up in about 5 minutes, so I just have a couple more questions to get to you. And so if you guys have questions in the audience, get your shot on goal in just a second.